Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our second session of the COVID-19 and the impact of fraud during the lockdown. My name is Antonio Pooe here at Exactech. My co-host today will be Mario Fazekas, who will take us through the slides.
That's good. Can I phone you back just now? I'm just in a conference meeting, Zoom meeting. Thanks, sweetie. Thanks a lot. Okay, bye. Bye.
Just some house rules before we proceed with today's session. If I could ask all of you to please be on mute during the conference. Mario and I will extend invitations and ask questions, at which point you can unmute yourself and make a comment or contribute. Alternatively, throughout the session, what you can do is on the chat session of Zoom, pop your questions in there while Mario is talking, or either myself running with the slides. One of us will take note of your questions and take those as we go along. Whatever we can't cover during the session, we will spare some minutes at the end to make sure we attend to your questions. Alternatively, at the end of it, we will collect those and then send you the responses to your questions, including the slides for today's session. Without further ado, let me hand over to my colleague, Mario, who will take us through the slides.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Good afternoon, ladies and gents. I'm going to switch my video off because it eats up the bandwidth, and I've got quite a lot of graphics in the slides. The slides will be made available after the session, so in the next couple of days you'll receive them. So let me start with two quotes. Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked. This is a quote from Warren Buffett, and that's exactly what has happened. When the economy is good, most organizations are not worried about the cents, but when we have a situation like now with COVID-19, organizations are scrabbling around trying to find those cents. A few family members, for example, told me that in the last few weeks, they've been contacted by doctors and dentists, and they've been sent statements saying you owe 12 Rand 50, you owe 67 Rand. And they said, what is this? And it goes back to last year. So organizations are desperate now for cash, and they're going back, and money that they may have just overlooked or written off, they're now trying to get it back into the business to pay salaries.
Mario, let me stop you there. Some of our participants can't view your slides, so I'm going to log off and let you reload the slides, and I'll join you in a second.
Okay. Can everyone see the slides now?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla. Okay, so the first quote we discussed was Warren Buffett. The second quote I want to get to is from the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, the CEO, Bruce Doris. He said, organizations now are cutting back. They're cutting back on costs. They're cutting back on people. And he says, we're finding ourselves in the perfect storm for fraud, because employees now are under intense pressure, motivating them to do these type of things. And that's where I want to pick up on. He spoke about pressure. Now, I know many of you will know the fraud triangle. We all understand that there's pressure, there's opportunity, and there's rationalization. When all three of them come together within the perpetrator, they move forward to defraud. So I want to just expand on this fraud triangle a little bit. Most people know the basics, but you may not know the extras that we're going to put in. So if you look at ISA 240, which is the External Auditors Fraud Auditing Standard, there are 5 pages in the back of this guideline document that show auditors what red flags to look for in terms of pressure, opportunity, and rationalization for both management and employees. That's how important the fraud triangle is. if we take that fraud triangle and we are looking at the person, we can maybe see people are under pressure. Oftentimes you can see people are down in the dumps, they not themselves, they may be drinking excessively, whatever. You can see a person's under pressure. Generally, you can see the opportunities, the breakdown of controls that could be exploited. But rationalization, that's in the person's mind. So generally, somebody looking at the people will not necessarily see that part of it. So we're left with two things to look at, pressure and opportunity. But what we found is that deviant behavior comes into this. A person generally cannot be just a thief and there are no other telltale signs, because generally if a person is doing wrong in one area, it spills over into other areas, and you find that in addition to stealing, the people are breaking some sort of rules in the business, they're downloading pornography, whatever the case may be. So we end up with a new model in order to try and find fraud. We're not saying the pod model replaces the fraud triangle. The fraud triangle still remains. That is what happens inside the perpetrator. But for us that are looking for these fraudsters, we need to look for people who are under pressure, that where the opportunities are, and look for deviant behaviors. So let's relate that now to the three parts of the fraud triangle with the new part called deviance. In terms of pressure, there's external and internal pressures. This guy, Barry Minko, he was a multi-millionaire by the age of 20. And he said, I put pressure on myself. I wanted a Ferrari by the time I was 20. And I had to lie, cheat, and steal to get it. So yes, there's currently, the COVID-19 has caused a lot of external pressure, but many people are putting pressure on themselves internally as well. So be aware that there's two types of pressure. The same goes for opportunity or autonomy. There's active autonomy, where we go out and earn trust within the organization. We want people to like us. If they like us, we know they will trust us and we'll be able to get away with more. And of course, there's passive autonomy, where the employee can see my company cares nothing for the rules. They don't care about ethics. People are stealing left, right. Nobody does anything about it. That's the passive side, which is what happened with Jerome Claviel at SocGen. The judge found him guilty. He put through 1.something billion euros worth of fake trades. And the judge said, I'm not going to send you to jail because your bosses knew what you were doing and turned a blind eye because they were earning bonuses out of what you were doing. And then deviance. We have personal deviance and professional deviance. So how are people acting at work? How are people acting at home, socially? Let's take these two gentlemen, Jeffrey Skilling and Kenneth Lay, two of the ex-CEOs of Enron. In terms of Jeffrey Skilling, he consistently acted deviantly by doing all sorts of wrong things. They were actually teaching their employees to do bad things and rewarding the bad things. He called it innovative. Let's take Kenneth Lay, the gentleman on the right. His sister owned a travel agency. He sends out a memo to all the staff at Enron that you must, when you are traveling, use this travel agency. And as a result, her prices escalated, her service decreased because it was captive business. Her brother is the boss and told everybody, you must use the travel agency, and if you don't, you will be disciplined. How's that for conflict of interest? So let's have a look currently at the type of pressures that could be under employees. Of course, we need money for short-term debt, long-term loans, our bonds, our medical aids. That's the obvious one. Then we look at rationalization. There's reduced employee rewards. I've spoken to a few salespeople who say, it's been 3 months since I got a commission check. I don't know what I'm going to do because my basics are not enough to cover my lifestyle. People are being retrenched, fired. What happens? Person gets told, I'm giving you a month's notice. What am I going to do in that month? If I'm disgruntled, my boss is getting rid of me, I need to maybe turn to fraud now. Lack of employer empathy. Many employees are saying, my boss doesn't care about me because, look, he's reduced my salary. He's taken away my perks. He sent me home. I don't want to be at home. I don't get on with my spouse. As a result, a lot of people are less productive. Some employees are concerned over their company's sustainability. How long is my employer going to go for? My wife went to the shopping mall that's near us here in Randburg, and she said 1/3 of the shops are closed. I don't think they're ever going to reopen. That's it. Leading to low employee morale. And survival ethics is now kicking in, where people are stealing time. That's how it normally starts, stealing a bit of time. Sick leave fraud, ghost employees, false expense claims, leading to the bigger and bigger frauds. Now we look at opportunity, simply lack of corporate governance. The obvious thing is working from home practices. Now, like anything, ladies and gents, there's a good side and a bad side. The good side of working remotely is no commute. We don't spend hours frustrated in traffic. We have more flexible hours, better work-life balance. But there's the bad side, which is loneliness, lack of communication. We are social creatures and we enjoy the social aspects. Many people, they call it a blue Monday, but a lot of people actually enjoyed work better than home. Those of us with good home lives don't understand that there's some people who don't want to be at home. That's why some people work till all hours to try and get home when their spouse has gone to bed. That's just how it is. There's ineffective fraud detection systems. So what's happening now with people being retrenched? It tends to be the watchdogs that get retrenched and internal auditors. So nobody's doing data analytics. Nobody's looking at management reports. Management is distracted. There's a justification for control overrides because you're grabbing any business that comes your way. There's no time now to do due diligence. Just get the sales so we can pay the salaries and pay our bills at the end of the month. There's reduced transparency with people working at home. What are they doing? Are they doing their work? Are they stealing from us? There's limited security in the cloud. I mean, we've heard all sorts of horror stories of Dropbox being hacked, and people just assume, it's on the cloud, it must be secure, and it's not the case. So we're tending to see less security in the cloud. And of course, with people being retrenched, there's a reduction in segregation of duties where one person now has to do what two or maybe even 3 or 4 did in the past. So what is all this leading to? If we go back 10, 15 years, ladies and gents, this was the original attack surface. So if somebody wanted to attack your company electronically, it was picture an underground bunker with one door. They had one door to go through to get to your local area network. In the last 10 years, that has been changing. And an article a couple of days ago in Forbes magazine said, this is a prediction that the largest cyber attack in history could happen within the next 6 months. And I want to show you why that could be. So this graphic that I've showed you now is about 10 to 15 years ago. Since then, we've got a few people working remotely. You've got contractors accessing your company systems. You've got a few remote workers accessing your systems from home, accessing the internet from the workplace. And now with COVID-19, this attack surface has increased 1,000-fold. This is what you're looking at now. So think about it. All the attacker has to do is find one of these remote employees that is not doing something that they should be doing. And that is how he's going to get it into your systems. Because we're all sitting with the same perimeter defense. Yet it's the employees that we should be focusing on. That's what we're going to get to towards the end of the presentation, to show you what should the people be doing that are at home. How should they be securing themselves? So in addition to the 2020 Association of Certified Fraud Examiners Global Fraud Survey, that they launched in March, they brought out 2 infographics. This one is the five fraud schemes currently observed due to coronavirus. And 90% of respondents reported they'd seen an increase in scams. So you've got phishing, charity and fundraising fraud, fraudulent vaccines, fake sales of gloves and masks, third-party buyer and seller scams. There was great celebration in South Africa yesterday where people were queuing up outside bottle stores to buy alcohol. Prior to that, we had people selling alcohol and cigarettes online. They were using the names of bottle stores that are legitimate. So you pay your money, of course, and then they will deliver to your doorstep. You don't have to go out, you don't have to risk a roadblock, but of course, the alcohol and the cigarettes never arrive. But people were so desperate. These criminals sell hope, ladies and gents. They wait for these type of things and they're selling you hope. And then, of course, the last one, business email compromise. So I'd just like to expand on 2 or 3 of them. If we look at phishing and smishing, so those are those fake emails. What we're seeing now is that 91% of successful data breaches start with a spear phishing attack. So phishing is where the criminal sends out thousands of emails with fake logon links, hoping that someone will click on it. I might get a link to a free lipstick. I don't use lipstick, so I'm not going to click on it. The spear phishing is when they come and look and see what are your interests. And they see, this person plays golf. So we find 10 people who play golf and we send all 10 of them a free subscription to Golfer magazine. We know that there's a good chance they're going to click on it because they want that magazine. And ladies and gents, in yellow, 30% of data breaches are repeat offenders. It's the same people over and over clicking on these links. And 15% of attack victims fall prey a second time. Many times when you click on these links, it's a ransomware attack. And in South Africa, the South African environment, they estimate that the average ransomware attack or breach costs 43 million rand. And these are just some of the cases that have appeared in our newspapers. We know of a few that haven't even made it to the newspapers. Liberty, City of Joburg, City Power, Nedbank, and their third-party provider.
Pawn bond.
What's happened?
I'm not talking, so did I run pause?
I don't think there is a pause function.
You actually can. On our webinar, you can.
Ladies and gents, please can you mute your systems? Otherwise, everybody can hear you. Thank you. 75% of these victims were running up-to-date endpoint protection. So what happened? It was the people clicking on social media links, operating from home with reduced security. And we'll look at that in a few minutes. Let's move down now to business email compromise. Global cost, $26 billion, because generally what happens here, it's also called business executive compromise, because it started off as CEO fraud, where criminals will spoof the email of the senior people. And a junior person now in finance normally receives this email from the big boss, and the big boss is asking them to transfer money. In many companies, the culture is one of you just do what you're told. You do not question. If it's the big boss, just do what you're told. So many of these juniors see the email from the big boss and they pay the money. And generally, there's no links, no attachments, and no spelling or grammar errors. I said generally. Unlike these Nigerian 419 letters where 99.9% have got grammatical and spelling errors. These ones, 99% don't have them. So I'm going to show you two examples, one with a few errors and one with very few errors. Okay, so this is an email example from one of our clients. Ulrich Wallen is the non-executive chairman who sits overseas. And this organization has branches worldwide. So most employees don't even know this person exists, this Ulrich Wallen. He normally deals with only the CFO, CEO in the regional offices, if ever. So I don't know if you've picked up, the obvious thing is the email. It's a Gmail account. In addition, chief has been spelled wrong in chief executive officer. That's the most obvious thing, but there are a few other red flags. So fortunately, this person that the email was addressed to went to the secretary of the regional MD and said, does your boss ever get emails from Mr. Wallen? And she said, yes, 1 or 2 a year, general emails, not to him specifically. He says, can I see it? One example. So the other secretary said, sure, here it is. So what you can do now is compare the original email from Ulrich Wallen to this one that has come through. And you start picking up that, of course, the email, there's 2 problems with it. We've discussed those already. The name format is wrong. It should be surname, first name. It should be Wallen Ulrich. The tone is incorrect. He's very formal, dear colleagues. He has hi Zarita. He doesn't know her, never spoken to her, emailed her before, ever. The font is incorrect. It's Times New Roman. It should be Arial. The I is not capitalized. Small thing, but this person doesn't make those type of mistakes. If we have a look at the gaps, the spacing, in the original, it's dear colleagues, and then he leaves a line. Yes, hi Zarita, no line is left. Then he'll say kind regards, and no line is left. Yes, thanks, and a line is left. And it's also sent from an iPhone. No company signature as well. So at least 9 red flags. And what we're saying is you don't need 9. You need 1. Just 1 to make you suspicious and start saying, hey, what's going on here? These guys improve what they're doing. So they realize what mistakes they're making. So Talanx is the holding company of this other company. So Ulrich Wallen reports to Talanx, and Herbert Haas is the chairman of the board. So in this case, you'll notice that it's got the German greeting. It's not sent from an iPhone. It's got the company logo. It's the Arial font. Everything is fine. The email is correct. It's no more Gmail, herbert.haas@talanx.com. But if you had to reply to that email, you are replying to boardexecutive@fastmail.fm. Small thing. So that's what we say. Double check on these links that you're going to click on. Does the inside where it's taking you equal the outside? And it is so easy to do, ladies and gents. Any one of us can highlight a link in a Word document, in Outlook, in PowerPoint, and then say link to, and go and change it and say the outside must say Standard Bank, but the inside says Stranded Bank. Now we look at the top 5 fraud schemes that are predicted to increase over the next 6 to 12 months. And they've started already, I can assure you. Phishing and smishing. We've looked at phishing, so now let's look at smishing. A friend sends this to me. Look, Woolworths is giving away free groceries worth 5,000 Rand to support the nation during the corona pandemic. So let me make that link a bit bigger, ladies and gents. Now, many people would say it's Woolworths. It says Woolworths. There are a few things that are wrong with it. There's no S. It should be HTTPS. And people should understand, they should be taught how to analyze a URL, because we're clicking on URLs all day, every day. So if we look at the resource name, the domain name is Woolworths, great. But what is the resource name? It's woolworths.com.za-grocery.club. We are not going to Woolworths here, that's for sure. That is the correct Woolworths. So it's a small thing like this that could be the difference of your organization being hit with a phishing attack or not. Cyber breaches related to working from home. We have found many people are not putting a password on their router. at home, the modem. It's almost as if they think, well, I only need password on my laptop and not on the router. When I log on at home, often it depends on the weather and if my neighbor's modems are on. I can pick up to 7 or 8 modems that are around me, and many times they tell me exactly what they are. So I can then just go to this website called Router Passwords, and it's got an A to Z list of all the routers that have been manufactured, each brand with the various models, and it will tell me the username and password, the default. And that all I have to do is go and test my neighbor to see have they set up a password or not, and try the default username and password. Another thing we found is online collaboration tools. Many people don't like Zoom. And yes, a few months ago, Zoom had one issue where people inside of Zoom could watch your meetings. They've plugged that gap. But a lot of people, IT departments, have still banned Zoom. And many organizations have turned to Microsoft Teams. And a lot of people are unaware that Microsoft Teams had an issue last month. There was a problem where criminals could have got into your Microsoft Teams if they had have clicked on this animated GIF that was sent out. And what the other thing we found is that even Google Classroom, it gets 1.5 stars as a rating. I've tried it. I'm not that impressed with it. I prefer Zoom or even Microsoft Teams. But what is happening is school kids are using Zoom for their classes. They are also using Google Classroom. Now, which of us wants to go to class, ladies and gents? Can you remember back to our school days? Did we want to go to school? We would love nothing more than school is canceled and we can go play. So these kids realize that if they share their login details for their school classrooms, they could get Zoom bombed and then there will be no class for the day. Employees are no different, ladies and gents. You have employees who want to work and others that would like work to be disrupted and they can go home. So they are sharing their meetings online, hoping that they get Zoom bombed and the meeting doesn't take place and they can go and watch television. Or they're sharing by mistake. And out of ignorance, they share and tell everybody we're having this Zoom meeting. And they copy and paste the logon details. Like what happened with our South African Parliament. They shared the logon details of this meeting on May the 7th. And they were Zoom bombed with pornography. But who gets blamed? Zoom gets blamed. There are some basics that you need to do. Make sure there's a password that's used for your meetings. Put the people in waiting rooms. Once they start coming in, you can start giving them access. Once people are in, lock the meeting room. And then limit your screen shares, because a lot of times people are opening and closing documents and there's already a document open that they don't want other people to see, but having a Zoom meeting and everybody sees it and it's recorded, or people take a screenshot and now you've given out something confidential that you should not have given out. So make sure you close all documents that are not related to this meeting so that people cannot see them. Another big one, unemployment fraud. There are many people, I think the estimates are that 1.5 million people could be unemployed because of this COVID-19 situation. 1.5 million people, in addition to the 10 to 15 million that were already unemployed, ladies and gents. So of course, the criminals are taking advantage of this. The government is said that they are going to be helping people. Many have not been helped. So, for example, the Ministry of Sports, Art and Culture has got a program in place. Let me blow that up. So there's a fraudulent campaign called the Campaign ZA, who are saying, well, this department has got a backlog. So hundreds of artists have not been paid the money that they were supposed to be paid. So these criminals are now contacting these people and saying, contact us and give us your banking details, your name, your address, your ID number, and we will sort it out for you. Or pay us 200 Rand and we will sort it out for you. And of course, they'll steal your identity. That's what they're going to do, and steal your money. So what does it look like now, ladies and gents? Going back to normal. I hear people saying that, oh, we must go back to normal. I want to discuss, before we look at the general controls that employees should be putting in place at home. I think many of you on this meeting could be forensic auditors, forensic accountants, these are the challenges for investigators and forensic companies. IT people are going to lose their jobs and may turn to hacking, so those kind of phishing attacks could increase. Organizations may not want to throw good money after bad money. They say, look, as it is, we're battling. We don't have money to pay our staff salaries. Now we must pay you to investigate this. No, we can't do that. Sorry. We're not going to throw good money after bad money. Forensic people are going to be retrenched, and they're going to start their own companies and start competing with us who are already in business, and they may be cutting their prices by 20, 30, 40%. Who knows? We need to understand that now. How do we transfer evidence? How do we find evidence during these type of lockdown periods? Should we be emailing evidence when we find it? What about our remote teams? People are feeling isolated. Should we be meeting more or less? We think more, because people are feeling isolated. And then how do we interview witnesses and suspects? Are we going to interview them over Zoom or Microsoft Teams? Most forensic auditors have been taught in analyzing body language, and that's why we have people sitting face to face, not behind a desk. We want to see the whole body. So now we're going to go from the whole body language to a face on Skype or Zoom, and maybe even a mask. How do you tell a person take the mask off, and then they get sick and say, oh, but you told me to take my mask off? Very difficult, ladies and gents. So the focus, I think, going forward is going to be micro expressions predominantly, as opposed to body language. And the other thing is, when you're interviewing somebody, how do you know there's not somebody on the other side of the screen telling them what to say? Those are type of things we have to take into account. Here's a survey done by KPMG in Australia. They looked at the fraud and corruption threat due to COVID-19, and they said the biggest threats are going to be suppliers and employees. Because think about it, for 2 or 3 months, companies have not been supplying businesses. So now they're going to be tempted to make up the lost profits by most probably getting involved with corruption schemes, where salespeople may be tempted to pay bribes to get business. Procurement officers, there's an increased risk of them accepting kickbacks, economic extortion, and of course with government tenders, manipulating the tenders and bid rigging, where all the companies that are tendering collude against the government department. So we can see that people are the biggest risk here. And this was a survey done in 2010 by Deloitte, where they found that on average, 45% of employees are engaged. And 55% are not engaged. They just come to work because they have to. They want to get a salary check. And actively disengaged, where they're trying to hurt the company. They're saying that company doesn't care about me, the boss doesn't care about me. Why must I care about the company? So that was 2010. Has it changed since then? Well, it's actually got worse. 2016, Gallup did a similar survey, and they found only 17% of employees in sub-Saharan Africa would call themselves engaged. 17%. And the end result of that is that, let's look again at a Ponemon Institute survey, South Africa in particular, where data breaches were caused predominantly by human error, 37%, and malicious or criminal attack, another 37%. So of that, maybe half of it could be insider malicious attacks. meaning that 50% of our problems are coming from within. How long does it take for the average organization to identify and contain this data breach? 229 days to identify it. Think about it. If the criminal comes in and he's just looking around, he's not doing anything, very difficult to pick him up. It's only when he starts taking things that you may pick him up. And then 82 days to contain it. That's a long time, ladies and gents. 300 days. So let's have a look now. What should employees be doing? What is best practice currently? Number one, use strong passphrases. Kevin Mitnick has got the reputation of being the world's most famous hacker. He was the first hacker to go to jail in America, and he spent, I think, 5-6 years in jail. He's written about 5 or 6 books. He's out of jail now. And he says, don't use passwords. He says, if you're using an 8-letter password, you will crack it within a few hours. It's that easy. So he's saying use passphrases like, for example, I love spaghetti bolognese. And he suggests 25 letters or more. Some companies, the IT department won't allow 25 letters. They allow 8, they allow 16. So we need to speak to these IT department managers and say, it's not secure. Make it longer. And please don't reuse your passwords or passphrases. Many of these data breaches have occurred because people are using the same password that they used on Dropbox or LinkedIn or Yahoo for the office. So the criminals now find out who you are, and that's your password on LinkedIn, and they say, let's try it at his workplace, and bingo, they're in if you are reusing your password. Use a secure VPN, virtual private network. It costs $10, $20 subscription per month, and it's well worth it because now you've got everything being done in a secure pipe. People cannot even see you, let alone try and hack into you. It's not foolproof, but it's much better than not having a VPN. Try and find out what operating systems your employees are using on their home laptops. Some people are still using XP. They tell me, no, I love XP, and XP was a very good product. But the Windows has stopped updates, I think, a couple of years ago. So it's an operating system that's really at risk. Do regular backups. Critical. Just because you're at home doesn't mean to say, I don't have to do my backups. Every couple of days, do your backups to your external hard drive. Make sure if there's a patch available, patch immediately. What happened with, I think it was Experian in the United States, the IT manager decided, oh, there's a patch out for whatever program it was. I won't do it today, I'll do it later. And he forgot about it. And 2 weeks later, they got hit and it was all over the newspapers and they had to pay fines. And of course, he was blamed. And yes, he should have done it, but where was his boss? Where was the policy? He should have put the patch in immediately. Try and segregate your work from home. If your kids, if you get up to go to the bathroom or go make coffee and your son or daughter comes and sits on your laptop, what are they going to do there? Or are they going to use your email? You know, you need to think of those things. Try and separate them. And secure all your personal devices. Many people I still speak to are using mobile phones that don't have antivirus because to them it's not a computer, but it actually is. If you've got antivirus, keep it updated. Reset your router defaults. We've discussed that one already. Use multi-factor authentication. Some people call it two-factor authentication, where, for example, you'll put in a password and then whoever you're trying to access will then send you a one-time PIN to your phone. That would be two-factor. We say it's not just two-factor because even two-factor can be overcome. We call it multi-factor, where sometimes you will use 3 or 4 elements. If you're at home and you have sensitive documents, please lock them away. You don't know who could be walking past, your window could be open, the wind could blow, your kids could take the papers, you just don't know. And if you do print those documents, what are you going to do with them after you've finished with them? Are you going to throw them in the rubbish? Because people, the dumpster divers, are going through the rubbish looking for documents that they can use to sell to your opposition, perhaps. If you've got Alexa or Google Home, make sure that they're switched off, they're unplugged. I've heard horror stories where people thought, oh, I thought it was off, but it actually recorded my conversation between me and my husband, and then they emailed that conversation to our friends because we were talking about our friends. And Alexa thought we said we must email this to the friends. It was on the news in the United States. So be very wary of these products that may be at your home. Lock your meetings. I call them Zoom meetings. It's any meeting you have. MS Teams, Skype, lock the meetings. If you are using hard drives and you're going to sleep, please unplug that hard drive from your laptop, because if you are compromised during the night while you're sleeping, somebody accesses your laptop and it's a ransomware attack. They're going to encrypt your hard drive as well as your laptop. There goes your backup. And the whole idea with ransomware is if you've got a backup, you don't care what they do to your laptop because you've got the backup available. So please unplug those hard drives. Watch your screen positioning. Can your neighbors look in? Binoculars, telescope, they could be looking at what are you doing and videotaping what you're doing. So make sure your screen's not facing outwards. Make sure it's facing inwards. And then we've got updating of policy, security awareness, and surveying staff members. I'd like to briefly go through those three in a little bit of detail. They are not more important than the others, but they are something that we suggest you start doing and don't stop with them. So if we look at the policies, people say to us, what do we need to do? Well, we're saying the policies you should look at is maybe your hiring policy or your employment policy, your conditions of employment, your IT usage policy. And then maybe if you don't have a work from home policy, create one. And people say, what would we say in the work from home policy? We say, well, there's a few things. What about the ergonomics? How are the people sitting at home? Because the last thing you want is because a lot of you have gone back to work this week, but many of our clients are saying to us, you know what, it's actually working for us. We've got 3 floors of office space. We don't now need 3 floors. We're going to reduce it to 1 floor, if not even less, and employees can work from home. Suits us better. They're more productive. They're not sitting in traffic. The last thing you want is people sitting on having poor ergonomics, and then in a year's time, you've got a workers' compensation claim. Or the employees blaming you now because their wrist is sore because they didn't have a proper mouse pad. Google's giving each employee $1,000 to buy new office furniture because they're working from home. I don't say you need to go to those lengths, but just make sure there's a comfortable chair. Maybe go to your employee's home. Have a look at the layout. You need to be aware of mental health issues. So that should go in the policy and say, if you're feeling isolated, do you have an employee assistance program? Who can these people turn to? What about fire and weather emergencies? Remember, they're working from home now. And I think it was a few years ago, some people burned to death in their home. It was winter and the gas heater caught fire, and they couldn't find the keys to open the trolley door. Couldn't get out. The burglar bars prevented them getting out the windows, and they burnt to death. So it might just be a simple thing like that. So where's the key to your trolley door? If there was a fire, how quickly could you get out your home? And then, of course, environment caused injuries and illnesses. There's a case at the moment in the USA, I think it is, where the lady tripped over a dog walking to a car with work papers. And the workers' compensation tribunal said, you're responsible, not your employer. The appeal court said, no, the employer is also responsible, and said, go back to the tribunal. So you don't want that. You need to be specific there. Who's responsible for what? And if you do go and visit your employees at home, just photograph the layout so that if they do change it at a later stage, they can't hold you liable and say that, oh, you didn't look after them. You'll have your photographs to compare to how they changed their situation at home. Security awareness training. Most organizations have these 7 layers of security. We call it the OSI, Open System Interconnection. But what's missing is the number 8, the security awareness layer. It's your people, ladies and gents. You may have the best firewall in the world. You may have great intrusion detection and email filters. A recent survey found that 15% of malicious emails were getting through these email filters. And never mind that, the criminals are going around all of this security directly to your employees, hoping they will click on links. And remember, traditional training accounts for 10% of retention. That's all. People learn best through experience. That's 70% of it. So formal training can be boring. People forget within 6 days, 70% of what it is they're supposed to have learned. Many people don't want to come to training. They don't see it as benefiting them. And as a result, employers are seeing a lack of positive behavior change because people are not getting what they want out of the training. So we've teamed up with KnowBe4, and it's great what they offer. They'll do a baseline test to see currently how many employees will click on phishing links. And on average, it's 30%. So without any training, about 30% of employees, including executives, especially executives, click on links they shouldn't click on. So now you've got your baseline. The next thing would be to do training. This needs to be little bits of training, ladies and gents. 5 minutes a week, not a 3-day course. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a video, a quiz, that type of thing, interactive. Then you fish your users, send them phishing emails, free pizza, whatever the case may be, and see, do they click on these links? That's your experiential, the 70%. That is how they will learn. If they click on a link, a little box pops up saying, you should not have clicked on this link. Look at the danger. And then you get your reports, and you can see exactly which are the problem employees. Going back to the beginning of this presentation, webinar, we showed you that on average, it's 30% that are clicking on the same links over and over and over. We need to find out who are those people and give them more training than the rest. The other things that could be done, you take a memory stick, you put a whole lot of documents on the memory stick and leave them lying around. If somebody picks it up and puts it in their laptop, immediately you are notified. This person has put the memory stick in their laptop. If they open a document, it tells you they opened it. If they enable macros, click on links, it tells you. So you can go back to those people and say, the policy says hand in memory sticks. Do not plug them in. Why did you plug it in? So, why do many organizations not get the desired behaviors? For 3 reasons. People are not motivated. If I know I'm going to be phished, we will be motivated. Now, in our own company, we're a small forensic company, and I thought, let me see what percentage of my employers, staff members will click on these links. And it only took one, ladies and gents, and one person clicked on a link that they should not have clicked on. And the link said it@exactech.co.za. This person should know there's no IT. We all have names in the company. We're small. There's no IT department. And it even warned this person, this could be a dangerous link. Do you want to carry on? And this person clicked, yes, I want to carry on. If we know we're going to get those type of phishing emails, we'll think twice before we click. They must have the ability, meaning that it must be easy to do. Not, 3 days out of my schedule, I must go sit through some class that has got nothing to do with me. If it's easy to do, meaning it's a 10-minute video or a quiz that's fun to do, people will say, yeah, let me go and do it. Or it relates to me. Yeah, I use Facebook. Let me find out what the dangers are. And then people get the prompts. So if they're motivated, got the ability, the prompt will drive the right behavior. So here's an example. We call it plan like a marketer, test like an attacker. So it starts off with the executive message, the little training modules at 10, 20 minutes, 1 a week, a newsletter, posters, and you fish people. During the weeks, the months, you fish them. Then a new message comes out, another training module. You keep on fishing, keep on them with the 10, 20 minutes. KnowBe4 offered a free work from home training module. And from December to April, look how the numbers have escalated. 5.5 million people downloaded or signed up for this training, of which 2.4 million took the training. If you're interested in seeing it, there is the URL, and it's about a 15-minute training video. Tessian just launched a survey on data loss prevention, saying it has failed. Why has it failed? Because primarily of lack of security awareness training. If we look at all industries, 37% of respondents had security awareness training once every 1 to 3 months, 24% once every 6 months, and 40% once a year or never. Do you see why, ladies and gents, traditional security awareness training is not working? And that if these people had training a little 10 minutes per week with in the back of their mind, I could be phished, these stats would change dramatically. Point 10, surveying of staff members. What we found in most organizations, there's a formal and informal culture. A lot of times, the senior executives are unaware of the informal culture. What they think the culture is the blue block on the left, is not actually what's going on. They're out of touch with their employees. And if you ask people, ladies and gents, they will tell you how they feel. Hollinger and Clark did a survey of 12,000 employees, and they said that employee deviance is primarily caused by job dissatisfaction. So we should be finding out which of our employees are not satisfied and why they're not satisfied. You will always have the grumblers. There will always be this small percentage, no matter if you can give them the corner office, the masseuse on hand, their lunch every day, they will still be dissatisfied. You ignore those people or you try and work them out of the system. But generally, people will think a lot about you and think, wow, my boss actually cares about me. He or she wants to know how I'm doing. And actions speak louder than words. They're actually doing something about it. You'll see how people will change. And here, it's just showing you on this graph on the left, how out of touch, in this case, IT managers are with their users. Most of the IT managers thought, I trust my employees to follow security policies when working from home. So they asked the people working from home. And they said, I'm less likely to follow safe security practices when I'm working from home. Wow. Can you be that out of touch? And they asked them, why is that? And it's because I'm not working on my usual devices, because nobody's watching me, or because I'm distracted. So what we're saying is, ask your people. Now, many times, there's a saying, a prophet is not without honor, except in his own hometown and amongst his own family. So when an outsider asks, you tend to get more of the truth than when an insider asks. So what we used to do, if we did training, we would do pre and post workshop questionnaires. We would ask people beforehand, give us some answers to these questions, and afterwards, so you could compare, did anybody learn anything? And the post-workshop questionnaire would ask them, what type of things are you seeing going on in the workplace? And many of these employees would say to us, who's going to read these forms? And I'd say, well, I'm going to read them and my colleagues may be. Why do you ask that? And they said, no, well, my boss will recognize my handwriting, so I'm not going to put down here what is really happening. So that's why we've now gone online surveys using Survey Fiesta. Let me give you an example of 2 branches in a client. We asked them, do you think that people you work with are generally honest? 53% said, no, I don't think my colleagues are honest. 53% said my bosses are not honest. 27 out of 50-odd people said the vendors are not honest. Wow, what do they know? Let's compare this to branch 2. Only 34% said their colleagues are not honest and 38% their bosses. Now, that's not a great number, but compared to the first one, it's much better. What an improvement. And we asked these people to tell us, what are you seeing going on? There's branch 1. They list exactly what they see: nepotism, favoritism, asset abuse, falsification of documents, compared to branch 2. Not without its problems, but minor compared to branch 1. So the next step would be to again survey staff to see, is it a problem with their manager? Because in 80% of our cases that we look at, where people are disgruntled, it's because of the boss. You've heard the saying, I didn't leave the company, I left my boss. So this is called the Blake and Mouton leadership style. And briefly what happens is we ask people to answer 18 questions. And of course, the best bosses would be bosses that sit up here. They're concerned about people and the task. And you can see branch 1, 34% of the employees felt my boss cares about nothing, compared to branch 2, where it's only 11% think that their bosses care about nothing. And 54% are the better managers, with 35% being in the middle. So this is pinpointing exactly where some of the problem areas are, leading to disgruntlement, disillusionment, and maybe theft and fraud. You may have heard of Taichi Ono. He was the production director at Toyota. And he said, why must we, whenever we have a problem in the plant, hire expensive consultants? You're going to come and sit here for weeks to learn our processes first and then tell us where we're going wrong. Surely we know ourselves. So he used to go on the floor, factory floor, and ask blue-collar workers, why did this happen? And it's the famous 5 whys. Why, no matter what answer you get, to get to the root cause. And we all do the same thing. We do not work in your business, so we do not know what the root cause is. So let's go and ask your employees, because they work there every day. They will know. And generally, they give us a big list, and we divide that list of what they tell us into people, process, and technology. So we can come to management and say, here are your fixes for your problems. 1 or 2 people have said to me, oh, come on, everybody knows what phishing is. And we said, really? Everybody knows what phishing is?
I don't know much about phishing scams, actually.
There's a person who employs 4,000 staff members, and she's saying, I don't really know what phishing is.
Yeah. When you throw a spear at a fish, catch it. Right?
Right.
No, to be honest, we haven't done a formal training for it. Most of us are young. I think we all just have this assumption that we know what we're doing on the internet, but I think we should know better, honestly. So if things are getting more sophisticated, it's something I would be interested in learning more about.
At the end of the day, ladies and gents, in order to successfully fight fraud, we need to try and prevent it. If we can't prevent it, we must detect it. Once we've detected, we investigate who did it, how did they do it, and then correct the root cause. So if we draw a line there, we're looking at left of fraud and right of fraud. Left of fraud would be the fraud triangle. What are we doing there to alleviate pressure, reduce opportunities, and have more loyalty with our employees? Because if we don't do that, when those 3 things come together, they will cross that line and they will commit the fraud, conceal it, and convert it. I want to end off this webinar on something more positive. One of my friends sent me these pictures. This is his daughter, and this is what she drew. And he said, she's been my daughter for 18 years. I didn't know she could draw. She didn't know she could draw. So there's something positive that's coming out of this COVID-19 lockdown. It's brought our family closer together. She's realized she's gifted, and she's now selling these artworks that she's doing. Some closing thoughts, ladies and gents. Crisis often drives successful change. Look back in history. Some people have been very successful out of these type of pandemics and other things that have happened. Businesses need to use COVID-19 to prepare for future long-term emergencies, because this won't be the last pandemic. So here's a question for you. Do you have a business continuity management plan? What happens when the next plague comes? And it could be in another year, 5 years, we don't know. And a BCM plan, ladies and gents, means more than simply stockpiling hand sanitizer, face masks, toilet rolls. It means rethinking how we work and how we organize business, starting with moving away from manual systems. I'm the first to admit, I did not want, I love training. I love interacting with people. Sitting, looking at a computer screen is not my idea of fun, but we have to make the most of it. Let's improve on it. And that concludes the webinar, ladies and gents.
Thank you very much, Mario. If I could give you a round of applause, but hang on, I think I can give you a round of applause via virtual clap. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, as stated, we will be sharing these slides with you. And as you go through them, there are 4 things that I'd like you to think about, because we really didn't have enough time to cover these in depth. The first one is the issue that we touched on around deviant behavior. Think about how your own employees, those in your workplace, are exhibiting these changes in behavior, both in their personal and professional life, and start looking for those red flags. The second thing I'd like to ask you to reflect on is around the importance of varying your employee training programs. As Mario stated, we cannot rely on the old school ways of doing induction, for instance, for new staff, or refresher training on policies and procedures and so forth. So be creative and think about how you can reach out and engage your employees in a more meaningful way. Thirdly, on the point of engagement, surveys are really important. Let's not assume that our employees are working from home and they are well because we see them online. It's important for HR, for audit, for business to reach out to employees and make sure that they truly are well and get their input during this time. You would have seen I've posted a question on the text where I've asked, in your view, what are the 2 most common forms of occupational fraud and/or abuse during the lockdown? Think about how this is changing in your workplace and start building defenses around that. Mario closed off with some challenges for investigators and forensic firms. And I want us to build on this. We, in fact, have another webinar on the 29th of this month. And the topic we'll be looking at, and I'll be presenting on that one, is the impact of cloud computing, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence revolution on investigation. Your employees are working from home, using multiple devices, data is sitting on the cloud. How does this impact the next investigation that you're going to do and your search for that evidence? So give that some thought, ladies and gents. We'll share the slides. Thank you very much. I see we do not have questions on the text. So those of you that have commented, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And do enjoy the rest of your week. Cheers.